Hey there, good evening, and welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph, and I'm the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. Okay, so I'm just going to straighten my chair here a bit. Anyways, tonight it's Wednesday Night Favorites. Sorry, it's coming out a bit late. It took a bit longer to put together than I had originally thought it would. So anyways, it's I decided to do, I enjoyed doing the one last week for debut albums so much that I'm going to do one for the sophomore albums. So it'll be the top 25, my top 25 favorite sophomore albums. So, what to say? Okay, so most bands, I think, put out a better second album than they do a first album. But it's not always 100% the case. And some bands took many albums to get to, or more than a few albums to get to releasing some really good stuff. But there are a few bands that made a huge jump, and they're all going to be present here. My group of 7 is much more active now it's going to be a group of 8 soon, but my group of 7 is much more active in the sophomore albums than they were in the debut albums. So we're going to do pretty much what we did with the debut albums, only it'll be for the second albums, of course. So it'll start by doing my 25th all the way to my first. So my least favorite of these albums to my most favorite of these albums. That's a bit subjective because, as you know, on any given day, these albums can switch around because some albums we grow to like more, others, they fade with time. Also, albums that have been around longer are going to be stronger because you've had a longer history with them than you would with albums you haven't had as long. So all these things are factors in my decision on which albums I decide to put into the list today. And then, of course, I'll give my honorable mentions at the end. So I don't want to waste too much more time talking about what most of you already know, so we're just going to get on with it. This was a little bit harder than the debut albums. Debut albums, I had about 3 or 4 I really liked a lot. With this, just about every album in the top 25 is at least a high level 2 or higher for me. So we're going to start out with number 25. An album that, sorry, I can't seem to get comfortable here. Okay. And I feel like I'm crooked. Okay, anyways, there we are. That's about as good as it's going to get, I think. Okay, there we go. Okay, so anyways, number 25 is from one of my group of 7. It's the Styx 2 album. I've heard most of the tracks on this album, but I don't own the album, so I haven't played it a ton. Of course, it does have Lady, which is one of Styx's best tracks. It has a few other tracks that are pretty solid on it as well. So it's going to come in at number 25. Originally, it was in my honorable mentions until I realized that I hadn't counted right and I missed number 17. So I had to move everybody up one and add one in. So there we go, Styx 2. So number 24 comes from a band that I have probably not heard me talk too much about, but I like this album quite a bit. It's got a couple of really big hits on it, and the whole album is pretty fantastic. The group itself is really a group that's really catchy. It's most of their stuff I get to like right away. Usually, when I first heard the song, it doesn't take me long to like them. But they don't have a lot of staying power, though. The stuff kind of burns out quicker too. We're talking about Toulouse Street by the Doobie Brothers. Like it a lot. Really good, solid album. The next one I forgot to write the group on, but of course I know who it is. The second album by The Who, which is a quick one. This has the little mini opera, I guess they call it, which I really like a lot. And most of the tracks on this album are pretty solid. I tend to think of the first two Who albums as more a collection of hits rather than, well, the first one more than the second one. The second one's a little bit more like an album, but anyways, pretty solid album, I think. Much better than the first one, which is just basically a collection of songs. Anyways, that's from The Who, number 23. Number 22 is an album I've only recently got, but have listened to it before and know quite a few of the tracks on it. I think it's a pretty solid album. To me, there wasn't a lot to separate this from A Quick One and Toulouse Street. They're all pretty good. They all had a few really solid songs and a bunch of songs that I'm not as familiar with. And we're talking about Killers by Iron Maiden, their second album. And the last one with Paul Di'Anno. And you know what? I don't mind Paul Di'Anno. I like Bruce Dickinson better, but I don't mind Paul Di'Anno. So number 21 is a band that probably when they were releasing these albums were among my favorite bands. I think I remember, this was before I had my groups. Before that, I used to have, every year I would put together my top 5 favorite bands, and this band for about 2 or 3 years running were in the top 5, and we're talking about Van Halen, of course, and this is Van Halen 2, which I like quite a bit. I don't like it as much as Van Halen 1, but it's still a pretty solid album. Guitar on it is really good, and of course David Lee Roth is really good here. There's just I think the weakness of this album is that it gets compared to 1 and it doesn't measure up to it, but it's still a pretty solid album, I think. Number 20 is the first one by this band, and an album I haven't listened to much for some time now. I can't even remember the last time I listened to this album, but I used to listen to it quite a bit. But as the band kind of has faded for me a bit, I haven't listened to it much. But I looked at the album today, and I do have it, and I'm thinking about I'm going to play it a couple times in the next couple days, because I forgot how many good songs are on this, and it's Rock and Roll Machine from Triumph, their second album. Pretty solid. And then the reason I started thinking about this album was because I don't know, a few weeks ago my daughter was out and she got a bunch of, she likes collecting cassettes, and she got this, for some reason she got this album, which surprised me. I didn't think she liked this group, but apparently she does. So anyways, it made me think about the album again. Okay, so the next one up is oh my god, I just wrote the one word. I don't know what I was supposed to be writing there. Just give me 1 second. I know what it is, but I just can't remember the full name. Anyways, it's Neil Young's second album is what it is. It's now I don't have my glasses either. Jeez, I started to write it out, and for some reason I stopped writing it. I don't know why. Everybody knows This Is Nowhere. And really good album. Lots of stuff on it. This has Cinnamon Girl on it, which is one of my favorite Neil Young songs. Sometimes I'm not quite sure when I'm listening to Neil Young. I'm not quite sure if it's Neil Young and Crazy Horse, Neil Young, or Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, you know. But what they did with Neil Young, if you're looking up his discography, is they put all the Crazy Horse stuff and they fit it in with the rest of his music that doesn't have Crazy Horse on it. So this comes out as the number 2. Sorry, I'm just going to put this back in here so I don't lose it. Comes out as the number 2 Neil Young album. A pretty solid one. Comes in at 19th for me. Yeah, it's just funny that I did that. I remember writing it and saying, "Oh, you know what? I gotta. I think something happened, and I left, and then I came back and forgot to finish it." Anyways, so come number 18 is a group, of course, that you know that I like a lot, which is BTO. I don't like this album as much as the first album, and it's got a couple of, it has Taken Care of Business on it, which is, most people know. If you don't know any BTO, you usually know that one. And Let It Ride, which is, I think, maybe one of their best songs as well. So it's got a couple of real heavy hitters. The rest of them, kind of mediocre. But still a pretty solid album all around. So we'll give it to BTO for number 18. Number 17, I didn't forget Ozzy tonight. I did forget him with the debut, but I don't think I would have put Blizzard of Oz in that top 25 anyways. But Diary of a Madman definitely goes in here because I think it's his best solo album. And it comes in at number 17, Ozzy Osbourne. And it's also the last full album featuring Randy Rhoads. Number 16 is an album that's currently in my playlist, and I like it quite a bit. It may be my favorite current Jethro Tull album, and that's Stand Up. Really good album. I really love that song, Fat Man. Such a great track. Okay, so number 15 is from Stevie Ray Vaughan, Couldn't Stand the Weather. Real solid album. His first 2 albums are just really good, and this one, his second album, fantastic stuff. I haven't really listened too much to the stuff that comes out after. Kind of got away from it. But I've got a couple of his stuff recently, so I'm going to be listening to a little bit more of him. Trying to get back into him a bit because I liked him quite a bit when I was getting away from rock a bit. He became one of the guys I listened to all the time. Number 14 is an album that's also in my playlist, and it's been in my playlist now for about 3 or 4 months, and is right near the top, like it's one of my favorites right now, and that's Acquiring the Taste by Gentle Giant, coming in at 14. I'm almost 100% sure if I did this next year that this album is going to be right up there in the top 5 or 6. I'm pretty sure of that, based on my listening preferences right now. Number 13 is an album that I listened to a lot when I was in my teens and late teens, because I was big into this band, and this was my favorite album from them, Regata de Blanc by the Police. It's got that Message in a Bottle, Walking on the Moon, just like some really solid stuff on there. Really good album. Haven't listened to the Police much in years, but in the day I loved it. I listened to them all the time. Another album that I still listen to on occasion, and I got it recently, so I'm going to be listening to it again. I had it originally in vinyl, and I also had it in cassette, and I had it in vinyl again, but all of that's gone, and I just recently got it in CD as well, and that's Foreigner's Double Vision. I think it's their best album, and it's going to come in at number 12 here. A really solid album. Number 11, another album that I listened to a lot when I got it. I had it in vinyl, I had it in cassette, and I don't think I have it in CD, but I'll look later. But really good. It's got a lot of really good tracks on it. Pretty heavy album too. Kind of punky a bit too. And we're talking about the Pretenders 2. So good, man, so good. Number 10 is Gabriel Ii. Now, this album is a lot different than Gabriel 3 and much better than Gabriel 1, I think. I think Gabriel 3 was kind of of his first 3 albums, Gabriel 3 was kind of the masterpiece that he put together and it also began to change a little bit. So he was like, to me, it's like the masterpiece, but also a transitionary album between the first two and Security. Security became a much more worldly type music and very, very rhythmatic, I guess, and poppy. Well, not poppy, but lots of drum beats and stuff like that. And this started on this album, I think, on 3. But Peter Gabriel II has a lot of my favorite singing songs, like In the Humdrum, DIY. Like, these are really, really good tracks. I think the album itself is overall better than the first album, but doesn't have a Salisbury Hill type track, unless you want to go On the Air, which I don't think really measures up to that level of Salisbury Hill. But the whole album as a whole, I think, is better. And I put it in the 10th spot here because I think it deserves to be there. And it was close between, once again, I don't know why this worked out, but on the first debut album, Phil Collins, of course, got on there, and now he's on here again because this is my favorite Phil Collins solo album, Hello, I Must Be Going. And I know it's kind of poppy compared to maybe the first album, but I just think it has some real good solid tracks on it, and I played it a lot when I got it. I still like it a lot. It has about 5 or 6 top shelf songs on it for me anyways, and my favorite song is on there from Phil Collins as well, so it comes in at number 9. Number 8, I moved this around a bit because I wanted to put it higher, but I don't think I don't really think of it as a master album, but it's pretty close. And it's got a kind of raw sound to it, but it's got about 6 or 7 like really heavy, great tracks, and among the best of this group's songs, and that's Hotter Than Hell from Kiss. A better album than the first one overall. Now, the first one has those 7 tracks that were on Kiss Alive, and they were all really good. But I think this one has a bunch of songs that didn't make Kiss Alive that are better than the ones that did make Kiss Alive. And, Got to Choose, Parasite are on here, and they're also on Kiss Alive as well. Did I say Kiss Alive 2 first? I think I did, but anyways, it's Kiss Alive that I'm referring to. Hotter Than Hell, Parasite, Mainline, I really like that a lot. Strange Ways, just some really heavy tracks on this, really good. I think it's probably my favorite Kiss studio album. Yeah, I think it is. Probably my favorite Kiss studio album. It's between this and Rock and Roll Over. Other than Ace Frehley's kind of solo kind of Kiss album, whatever you want to call that. Excuse me. Guess I better get a drink or this is going to be turning into a cough fest. I don't know why it's so dry in here today. Okay, so the next 7 up are, the next song, the next 3 kind of fall into that range. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. All these ones there isn't really like much separating them, given any given day they all could flip around a bit. It's not until you get up to the top 5, that 4, I guess, that you have a little bit of a difference here. So anyways, coming in at number 7 is an album that I listened to a lot during my Stevie Ray Vaughan era, and that's Axe as Bold as Love by Hendrix. So many good tracks on this album. Of his 3 albums, I think I like this one the best. I think I do, but that's, it's just because maybe I've listened to it the most of the 3. It maybe doesn't get as much airplay as the other two, so maybe that's the reason why. I'm not really sure, but it's got some really good. Little Wing is on here. So good. So good. I mean, Hendrix is, of course, is a master. So this is a fantastic album. Axis Bold as Love. Jimi Hendrix. Number 6 was probably my favorite of this group's albums for a very long time, maybe 20 years. Then as I started to get older, I'm pretty sure what happened here was that I only had this, well, I'm going to say it, Led Zeppelin 2, by Led Zeppelin, of course. But I only had this one, Led Zeppelin 3, and In Through the Outdoor. Those were the 3 Zeppelin albums I owned. And for the longest time, I liked this one the best because it's, in my younger days, I liked it heavy music. That's what I wanted to listen to, really heavy music. And I think the heaviest music is on this album of the 3. Later, I started getting into Led Zeppelin 3 as I started to mellow. I like that a lot more. And of course, I always liked In Through the Outdoor. But Led Zeppelin 2, Whole Lot of Love, the Lemon song, Ramble On. It's just like classic Led Zeppelin here. And so I put it in the 3rd spot and actually debated a bit between this and the 5th spot. But I think what happened was between the two is, and number 5 is Trespassed by Genesis. Number 6 is Led Zeppelin 2. So I think what happened is that Led Zeppelin 2 I listened to a lot when I was younger for about 20 years. So probably up until I was close to my 40s, and it started to fade away a bit. That's almost around the time when Trespass came around for me. I'd heard it before, but I hadn't been listening to it, but it started to take off, and and the album has gotten stronger and stronger as the years goes by, and that I think is why, if you were to ask me which one I would, if I go to the shelf to pick one off the shelf, and I had to choose between the two, it's almost always going to be Trespass now. I don't see me picking Zeppelin 2 over Trespass. Anyways, so I put Trespass as number 5. Okay, the next 4 are probably a bit of a hike above these last ones. Because to me, the next 4 are all master albums. Looking at them here, I think the number 1 and the number 4 aren't the number 1 albums of those groups, but the other 2 are. So number 4 is going to be Paranoid by Black Sabbath. I know for many people this is the quintessential and the best Led Zeppelin album. I prefer, given a choice, I guess I would rather prefer Master of Reality from the Ozzy era. That would be my first choice. And then this one. And though it's pretty close between this one and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath too, so like I could flip out on either one of them. Paranoid tends to go through a little bit of phases for me. Sometimes I really like the heavier stuff. War Pigs, of course, I always want to listen to. Paranoid, I never want to hear again. And it's way overplayed. I never want to hear that song as long as they live. That's probably why it doesn't get the rating it does. It just, that song is just burned out. But it's still one of the best rock albums ever, I think. And definitely one of the best heavy metal albums ever. And that's why I put it in 4th place here. And it was kind of in a void here because it's better than Trespass. It's not close. But it's not as good as number 3 and isn't going to be as good as number 3 anytime soon. So number 3 is Rainbows Rising. I love every track on that album. I know some people kind of don't like that. There's one track on there they don't really like. I can't even think of the name of it right now. But I like it. Tarot Woman, Run with the Wolf, and Stargazer and Light in the Black. I don't think it gets any better than that. I love the keyboard part at the beginning in Terror Woman. It's kind of an eerie song, but I really think that Cozy Powell is just fantastic on that song. Like, Terror Woman, I think, is one of the greatest rock songs of all time. One of the best. Was definitely one of the best Rainbow songs, but it's only number 2 on this album because Stargazer's even better. And of course, Powell is amazing on that too. And I think that's probably one of Ronnie James Dio's very best vocal performances as well. This album, it's a master album for a reason. It's like their first album wasn't bad, and the next album after this wasn't bad either. But this one is just so much better than them. Rainbow Rising coming to number 3 here. Okay, so number 2 is an album I've been listening to for a year now. I love every track on it, and in my case, I've got a remastered reissue. So they gave me not only the original version of the album, but they also gave me the US version that didn't come out for almost 4 years after the original version. But it's the same songs, but just a little bit different. And that's A Tab in the Ocean by Nectar, which coming in at second here. Just so good, this album. Really has put Nectar on the map for me. They were a band I didn't know much about or hear much about. I don't even think I knew a song by them. If you've gone back to June of last year, I had just gotten an order through the mail, and this was one of them, and Recycle was the other one, which I'm listening to now, and I like that a lot too. This band has become one of my favorite bands of recent times. I haven't listened to it enough yet to put it in the top bands or anything like that, but this album definitely gets Sophomore number 2 spot. Here we go again. Too much talking, I guess. I've been told that on occasion. Okay, so number 1. Number 1 was going to be number 1. I didn't even have to think about it. It's almost my favorite of this band's albums. It's been close for a couple decades between this and my number 1 album by this group. It's just a hair off. The other album has slowly began to fade over time, and this one has also started to fade a bit too. I think after about 30 or after about, there's a certain amount of, before I say it, what the album is, there's a certain amount of uphill travel for albums, and then they get to a zenith, I guess it is, and they stay there for a while. I'm not quite sure where that is, but I've discovered in the last 5 to 10 years that some of these albums I've been listening to for 40 plus years are starting to fade on me a bit. It's because I've been listening to them for so long, and I think it's because I've been listening to so much new stuff too that it's kind of pushing them out the door a bit. I don't know if some of them will fade a little bit more than others, but anyways, my number 1 is Fly By Night by Rush. There's never going to be anybody challenging that, not on this list at this present time. Tab in the Ocean could challenge for this at some point, but it's not around. It hasn't been around long enough. Fly By Night was the first Rush album I ever listened to completely. Got it at the library, listened to it for 3 weeks. It was actually, for a while, it was the only Rush album I had listened to until I got my first Rush album in 1980, which was Permanent Waves, which coincidentally is my favorite album by Rush. But they're not much between my favorite Rush album right down to my 4th. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all real tight in there now. Even number 5 is pretty tight. And then there's a big drop off after the first 5, but those 5 are all pretty tight. So anyways, there you have it. Fly By Night by Rush, number 1. So many killer tracks on that. Bytor and the Snow Dog is a classic. Anthem, of course. And then some of the lesser known songs that I really like quite a bit, like Beneath, Between, Behind, Best I Can, Making Memories. That's been one of my favorite Rush songs for a very long time. In the End is great. And I liked Rivendell, despite other people don't really like it much. They don't think it really fits into the album very well. Maybe it doesn't. I actually went through my mind once thinking about how many bad Rush songs are there. I up until Signals, I don't think there's any that I hate. There isn't. There might be a few on the albums that come after that, but certainly not up until that point. Anyway, so Fly By Night wins number 1. So I'm just going to reiterate them and then give you my honorable mentions. So number 1 was Fly By Night by Rush. Number 2 was A Tab in the Ocean by Nectar. Number 3 was Rainbow Rising. Number 4 was Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Number 5, Trespassed by Genesis. So there you go. Out of my top 5, 3 of my group of 7 are up there, and I think there wasn't any in the first set. I don't think there was in the debut albums. Okay, so number 6, Led Zeppelin 2. Number 7, Axis Bold as Love by Jimi Hendrix. Number 8, Hotter Than Hell by Kiss. Number 9, Hello, I Must Be Going by Phil Collins. Number 10, Gabriel's 2 album. Number 11, Pretenders 2. Number 12, Double Vision by Foreigner. Number 13, Regatta de Blanc by The Police. Number 15, Acquiring the Taste by Gentle Giant. Number 15, Couldn't Stand the Weather by Stevie Ray Vaughan. Number 16, Stand Up by Jethro Tull. Number 17, Diary of a Madman by Ozzy Osbourne. Number 18, Bachman Turner Overdrive 2. Number 19, for Christ's sake. Okay, Neil Young's, I forgot the title already, so we'll just skip it. Rock and Roll Machine by Triumph. Van Halen 2. Killers by Iron Maiden. A Quick One by The Who. Toulouse Street by the Doobie Brothers. And Styx 2 Styx 2 by Styx, of course. So the honorable mentions, there's about, I think I wrote down, how many we got here? We got, we got 6, I think. 7 songs. Okay, so Time in a Word by Yes. Yes, for me, didn't take off till the 3rd album, which is big for me. It's a master album, but the first 2 were kind of weak. This one was better than the first one, I think. I like some parts of this quite a bit, so I wanted to give it an honorable mention. Magazine by Heart. Heart's debut album, one of the best, I think, of all time. This one, I can see they had problems with Mushroom trying to stick this one on before they were ready, and they had all kinds of dispute, and they actually went on to a different label and released another album, and then they came back and released this one, but it actually should have been released second. Anyways, the album isn't that great. It's not bad. It's got a couple of decent tracks on it, but a drop off from their first one. Don't Look Back by Boston, also a drop off from their debut album, but not a terrible drop off. It's still a pretty good album, I think. On Record, April Wine, some good tracks on that. If you get a chance, give that a listen to. One that I did on I Look Back recently, Shaken Like a Human Being, Kim Mitchell's sophomore album. Pretty good album. Some pretty solid music on it. David Bowie's Space Oddity, of course, and Ronnie James Dio's second album, The Last in Line. A pretty solid album. I don't think it measures up to Holy Diver, but pretty solid. So there you have it. My top 25 sophomore albums of all time. So I hope you will enjoy this video. It's going to come out late, but it's still going to come out. It's going to be released as soon as I upload it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like and subscribe. Next week, I'm not sure. I think I'm going to do a top 10, try to give myself a bit of a break. I've been doing these 25s, and they're a lot of work. They take a while to get all you want to get. You don't want to forget anybody. And then some of them, you just like weighing them. Really, do I really like that more than that? That kind of thing goes on. Anyways, I hope you enjoy the video. My next videos will come out Friday morning, series video. I think it's episode 52 from 2014. And then, of course, the live one. Now I have to really start thinking about that live one because I'm not sure what I want to do. I was still thinking about doing an Eloy thing, but I haven't decided yet. And then, of course, on the weekend, there'll be some more stuff. There'll be another series one on Sunday morning. Actually, it'll probably be Sunday afternoon because I'm going to release my second installment of Music Other Than Rock show, which comes out Sunday mornings. So that'll probably come out first, and then the series video, which will come out later. And this week we'll be doing, I believe I've got it set to do the books, which is my non-music related thing. I'm doing a book look back, and I'm not quite sure which one, but I have a good idea. And we'll be doing that too for you people who want something a little bit different. And I need to change up too, just to keep myself fresh with this as well. So anyways, I hope you enjoy the video, and have a good night, and enjoy the video, and we'll see you next time on Favorites on Prog Monster. So have a good evening. Bye.